Joining us now is Austen Fletcher. He's a journalist and a social media content creator, otherwise known by his online handle, Fleccas. So, Austen, I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight. We were just talking about how Barstool Sports and Dave Portnoy has stepped up to help small businesses during this time, but it's a weird conversation to be having. A year ago, for example, I didn't think we'd be talking about the government shutting down small businesses and now these businesses struggling to really make it by this time. So, during this whole pandemic, what has been your takeaway?
Yeah, exactly like you said, this was so unexpected. And when we see the things playing out the way they were, I think Americans are starting to realize that small businesses are the backbone of this country. So while things, for these small businesses, maybe it would have been a good idea to stay out of politics originally or not get too politically involved. But now it seems like we're making these people, the backbone of this country, make a choice and get more politically involved. And I think we're kind of seeing a big wake up here, where maybe a lot of people who historically thought they were naturally left leaning, maybe center left, don't realize how far the political spectrum has shifted in the last year or so. So now that we're seeing these lockdowns and this government overreach and basically the ushering in of socialism and communism, I think we have a lot of people that do represent the grassroots of this country kind of waking up and saying, wait a sec, where are we going with this? What's the long-term plan? And when they see Trump take action like he did last night, changing it from 600 to 2,000, I think a lot of people are going to start saying, hey, that's kind of more towards where I'm trending as opposed to the far left where things are heading now.
And I think you bring up several excellent points right there, but one is one that really goes across all barriers on this conversation. It's the idea that there are Democratic small business owners, there are Republican small business owners, but oftentimes when this conversation is played out in the media, it's one versus the other. It's Republican versus Democrat. You either don't believe in coronavirus or you're killing grandma, things of that nature. And I don't think that's the right conversation to be had. And even to your point, too, I mean, think back to the election. We would be seeing new polls every single day in the lead up to the election. I don't see polling when it comes to lockdown orders, and I think it's because everybody knows that they're overwhelmingly rejected by those that are suffering. Is there just a lack of conversation that's appropriately being had in the media about this topic?
It's a lack of conversation, but it's also manipulation and disinformation by the mainstream media and unfortunately by the Democrats and the establishment. Because at this point, the people who maybe thought they were center left are now realizing that the stakes aren't left versus right, Democrat versus Republican anymore. It's actually people who want to see the country succeed versus people who don't mind if it gets destroyed because they think they have a better idea of what they'd like to usher in instead. So I think these business owners maybe historically could have been voting Democrat in like a blue dog dem sense from back in the day, but now they're realizing that if they side with the Democrats, they're siding with the far radical left. And I think the new lines that need to be drawn are the far radical left versus everyone else, because at this point, liberals, conservatives, Republicans, centrists, libertarians, we have more in common as a core base surrounding the middle than we do with anyone to the far radical left who, would like to see the country go to the wayside.
And that's what I noticed from watching your content. In fact, anybody who doesn't follow Austen, I highly suggest you do, because you go and talk to those people oftentimes. And oftentimes it is just on the streets or whatever it may be, just average everyday people who may have differences and all of that. But at the end of the day, at least you're talking to them. And that's more than I could say for many of these big legacy media outlets. You turn on MSNBC and CNN, you don't get a debate. You get told exactly what you would expect someone on the left would want to hear. And I think that is problematic. So when we talk about lockdown orders, or I guess just this whole basically past 4 years in its entirety, is there a disconnect between those in the leadership making the decisions and then those who are bearing the brunt of those decisions?
Absolutely. At this point, the people who follow the mainstream media and the far left, they've been programmed and in a way brainwashed to receive the information from top down. So when they bring people on like Dr. Anthony Fauci or whoever CNN likes to show, they're actually the people who are watching and they're being told what to do, and they're kind of coming back for their it's like in a way fear. Like they're fearfully returning and being told what to do. How do I stay safe? How do I stay safe? But if you actually show the people like you guys do, who are own small businesses and are struggling, people would realize that maybe there is a cost benefit analysis. Maybe we can decide on our own. Maybe we can take our own precautions with some knowledge from the experts. But if you don't show the story of the people suffering, you don't show how bad it truly is, I think there is, like you said, a disconnect, and no one really knows how detrimental this would be. You can't just shut down the entire economy for over a year. This is irrecoverable at this point.
I think that you're hitting the nail right on the head because it's such an important conversation. And once again, when you turn on the media, it's about if you, for example, don't stay indoors, you don't wear a mask inside of your apartment, you don't care about the coronavirus, you don't care about victims, but that's not the right conversation. This is just another front that many families are fighting in this pandemic, and it's an equally important one. If you can't put food on your family's dinner table, that's equally as bad as coming down with the coronavirus for many families. I think that's the conversation that needs to be had during this time. But Austen Fletcher, I can't thank you enough for coming on tonight, breaking down this issue and really why it really is important for those in the conservative movement more broadly. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.